If polls are to be believed, then the Labour Party will form a government at Westminster after the general election on July the 4th. If some polls are to be believed, that majority will be very large indeed, maybe even historic. But today we're in the one city where Labour stands to lose: Bristol. And that's not to the Lib Dems or the Tories or the SNP, which will be hard because we're in England, but to the Green Party, who are looking to win their second MP in the new constituency of Bristol Central. It's replaced Bristol West, which was the constituency in the last general election in 2019. Now, Bristol has always liked to be a little bit different, a little bit quirky. After all, it's the home of Massive Attack, Banksy, and it's a very large city which has never had a football team in England's top flight, which I find rather strange, but there you go. But is it so different, so unique, that it could be the home to the second MP for the Green Party of England and Wales, particularly given Labour in the last general election in Bristol West won a majority of more than 30,000? Well, that's what we're about to find out, because today, here in Bristol, where the Greens want to win that second seat, they are launching their general election campaign. I plan to talk to the party bigwigs, but I also want to talk to everyday Bristolians, because after all, those are the people the Green Party needs to persuade if they want that second MP at Westminster.
Nationally, it's very clear that the Conservatives are on their way out of government. They're toast. And so it's going to be a Labour government. The choice for voters here in Bristol Central and in other constituencies across the country is, do they want a 100% Labour government where Starmer has no challenge from the left, where he can carry on U-turning on their policy pledges like the climate investment pledge, on standing up for renters, standing up for workers, public ownership of public services, all of those U-turns he's made before he even got into government? What's it going to be like when he's in government if he can't hang on to those policies in opposition?
People who've voted Labour, all their lives are now looking at this Labour Party, seeing them, for example, not even say that they would reverse the obscene two-child benefit cap, seeing that the fact that they've done that U-turn on the massive investment in green technologies that was supposed to be happening, green energy and so forth, seeing them not even have a conversation about whether or not a wealth tax on just the tiniest top percent. The truth is, we don't know what he stands for anymore, and there are red lines after red lines that he seems to have transgressed, when it comes to, for example, the original pledges that he stood on. The vast majority of those have gone out of the window. So I think the real problem here is that we don't know what Keir Starmer stands for, and we don't know which way he will go in a crisis. And that is worrying.
Voters have repeatedly told me that they don't feel confidence in a Starmer-led Labour Party to represent their values and principles, and they don't think that Starmer has offered the big tent politics that was promised. That's what many of them wanted to see, and it's why voters, I think, did give Labour a chance under Starmer. But it doesn't seem to be big tent politics at all.
The deliberate humiliation that I think we've seen both of Faiza Shaheen and of Diane Abbott points to a kind of authoritarianism from Labour, which I think is worrying, not just for members of the Labour Party, but worrying in terms of what kind of Labour government we actually get. So yes, I do think that people will look at that and think it's a really unpleasant way of doing politics, a really authoritarian way of doing politics. And people will come to us as a result of that. But more seriously than that, I think it says something about this Labour leadership that they are willing to really treat people with such cruelty, for want of a better word, such unkindness, and have such a cavalier disregard for democracy.
My political journey has been very interesting. It's been quite topical with all of the stuff that's been happening in the media yesterday. So I started off as a Labour member, voted Labour all my life, and I became a councillor under the last leadership. And then over recent months, as I'm sure you're all aware, people that are progressive and outspoken in the party have somewhat been marginalised. And I was deselected. I actually applied for a parliamentary seat in my locality, and I was told I couldn't go onto the long list despite having a union nomination because I liked one of your tweets, Aaron. So
you liked one of my tweets,
yeah.
And that stopped you from being longlisted.
It did. It did.
I know that Labour locally in Brighton are saying they need a giant majority that needs to include Brighton Pavilion so that they can rule for 10 years. And the kind of rule they might be talking about there, it's got a different character following what's happened last night, I think.
Are you worried about a Keir Starmer premiership? If he has this giant majority, the way he's behaving right now, he might see a sort of authoritarian government after July the 4th?
More so than I was, for sure. These are worrying events when it comes to how they're going to treat opposition.
We can be that clarion voice in the room. We can be the ones that are asking the questions and making the proposals that nobody else is. Unlike Labour backbench or frontbench MPs, I'll be free to stand up for the values and principles of the people in Bristol because I won't be told what to think and what to say by the Labour leadership. I would say the three big things that are brought up with me over and over again by voters in Bristol Central are housing, transport and the climate crisis. Housing is probably the top one.
What's the thing that really matters to you in the general election?
Well, personally, economic justice. This last 14 years has seen a really cruel, nasty, austerity-minded bunch of ideologues who have done lots of damage to the economy and particularly to the lower paid, while we've seen corporate profits reaching record levels and bonuses and fat cat salaries going stratospheric.
Locally, wage disparity, homelessness, general prices of food and rent prices are insane. I have multiple friends who have been homeless for months because they can't afford or even find a room. It's becoming impossible to live here.
The renting crisis is quite a large one. I think that's because it personally affects me, and I know that affects everyone. But yeah, so housing and also the environment as well.
We had the climate conference in Britain. When it ended, I thought, I need to do something. And I thought, it's a democratic country, votes count here, I will join the Green Party. So that's what I did.
So it's purely on climate initially?
That was my initial concern, yes. I want something much more radical. I don't think we've had a genuine alternative in British politics for many decades. The Conservatives and Labour are too close. They're all about who can run the same economy better. And we need to do things very differently in the present climate.
So you said that you might consider voting Green here in Bristol Central. What's your reasoning behind that possibility?
Well, there was obviously the big thing with Labour coming back on their green policies. And I think even from an economic point of view, it's a good idea to be investing in green energy strategies. And I think that is something that's important to me and a lot of people my age. And so, I'm not expecting that Greens will win a significant number, but if you can get an extra voice in Parliament which is going to push for those sorts of issues and keep Labour in check, and making sure that they do adhere to that sort of way of thinking, then I think, that would have me vote Green in this constituency.
Usually I go Labour, but I feel a bit like Labour is not what I kind of used to think it was anymore. It's gone a bit more right than I agree with. From the bits and pieces I've seen, I think Keir Starmer is trying to appeal to the masses, and in doing so is letting go a little bit of Labour's values.
I'm very disappointed with his policy backtracks and his own hypocrisy and double standards. There's clips of him just a few years ago saying Jeremy Corbyn was a good friend. Now you've got clips saying he's denying Jeremy Corbyn was ever his friend. I mean, that's just basically dishonest, isn't it?
Keir Starmer's a wet wipe.
Have there been any sort of particular moments where you thought, wow, I just don't like this guy?
Mainly for his views or sort of lack of views or general idiocy around the Israel-Palestine conflict, genocide.
But there's a lot of young people, big university and student population here, a lot more green awareness and green consciousness. And I think it's coming home more and more to roost as we see storms and climate change and all these things. And our rivers, the state of our rivers and the sewage being pumped into them, it's scandalised people. And that's something that is obviously a very green issue.
In Bristol specifically, there is a big green following. A lot of people care about the environment here, and you've got a massive vegetarian vegan population here who that's also a massive fight towards that. So I think it's the demographic of people who live and stay in Bristol, lots of creative, liberal people who want everyone to be happy and the world to be a nicer place. So I think that's why they do so well.